Everybody, welcome to Spitballin' Cards. I'm Jeff in Scott's seat for the day. I believe Scott is out burning his Yankees Soto uniforms in the streets. For us today, we're going to be talking about Soto. With me today is Chris, baseball card addict, and Filmington. So, late last night, news broke of Juan Soto signing the biggest contract in major sports history, $765 million over 15 years, and there's a unique escalator in there, kind of a buyout of the opt-out that can bump it up to over $800 million. So a minimum of 805. No deferred payments. He's going to be a wealthy man. What does that mean for us? What does that mean for baseball? What does that mean for cards in particular? What did you think of the news, Phil?
Well, I was doing something last night, and then I got bombarded with all these messages from you guys. I got this new Fitbit watch, and I'm just getting this like buzz, 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 and I'm like, I asked my wife Stacy, "Can you just research like Juan Soto Yankees and see if anything came up?" And then she's like, "Juan Soto New York Mets," and I'm just like, "Oh." It kind of hurts. I mean, from a fan perspective, I do prefer that location over the Yankees as a fan because I'm a Red Sox fan, and I didn't like the idea of. I just couldn't get into rooting for the Yankees really in the regular season or the playoffs, and I'm a big fan of Juan Soto. So going to the Mets and not the Red Sox sort of stung a little bit, maybe feel a little bit better, but from a hobby perspective, I think there are some real concerns that people are having. You're seeing right now on Instagram, Twitter, etc. People are selling and selling right away, right? So there's going to be a dip. How much is that dip going to be? I mean, if you really to look at just the markets in Major League Baseball and forget about everything else and all of the narratives, the Mets are probably a top 4 market, maybe a top 3 market in the majors. They're definitely not on the same level as the Yankees or Dodgers, but I would call them either a tier 1B or a tier 2. Now you might respond saying, well, the Mets is where star players go to die. And there's been various examples, whether it's been somebody who kind of like a hometown hero, or that was his original team, David Wright. Jose Reyes kind of faded away, Robinson Cano, but that was sort of post-peak, in my opinion. And there's been a number of other players too. I'm not too worried about that. Also, him being obsessed with money and having no loyalty towards the Yankees. Well, after the news about the escalator came out, it was more than just a few million. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, he probably would have just picked the team that gave him the most money. The things that I think concern me from a hobby perspective, there's probably 3 things, and none of which I've mentioned yet. One is the lack of lineup protection. So you look at him batting in front of Aaron Judge, and who does that benefit? Well, Aaron Judge had one of the most insane seasons ever, but actually that benefits the guy that's seeing more pitches, the guy that's batting first, and that being Juan Soto. So what's it going to be like in New York when he has Mark Vientos or whoever batting behind him? Maybe they sign somebody else. That's going to hurt him. And this is something that WAR doesn't account for, right? WAR's not going to adjust your WAR up because you have somebody shitty or average batting behind you. And Vientos is awesome in the playoffs, right? And maybe he'll be awesome again. Maybe he'll carry all that success over into the regular season. I don't really see that entirely being the case. But the second point being the bad ballpark. That is the Citi Field. I think in 2022, they ranked as like the 3rd most pitcher-friendly ballpark. And it's left field and right field, I believe. So, Soto likes to hit the ball pull side. He likes to hit the ball the other way. That would impact him in both areas. And we saw how that affected him in Petco playing in a pitcher-friendly ballpark for half his games. He just wasn't as good. A guy that has the power and the ability to take advantage of really any ballpark, that mentally could possibly get into his head. Maybe he'd be pressing a little bit more, being too aggressive or not aggressive enough or whatever. And then the third thing that I think could affect his narrative is he's been moving around a lot, guys. This is his 4th team. He's 26 years old, right? So look at a guy like Max Scherzer. Why is he not as collectible as somebody like Justin Verlander, or not nearly as collectible as somebody like Clayton Kershaw, right? I think being on a lot of teams hurts the ability for collectors to get that emotional attachment to you and be like, okay, this is my PC guy. How many people do you know that PC Max Scherzer? Probably not many. And those that did probably, or there's a good chance they gave up when he switched teams countless times. So
It's got to only be the hobby people with the two different color eyes, right? If you've got two different color eyes, you PC Max Scherzer, like 100%. All right, sorry, continue, Phil.
yeah, no. But those three factors, I think that leads to short-term softening. At the end of the day, I like this guy when he was on Washington, though. He's a guy that can transcend whatever team or environment he plays for. Who knows? The Mets could actually be closer to a World Series now than the Yankees. We don't know. They could surround him with all sorts of other talent. And it's still, at the end of the day, a good situation. And I wouldn't look at previous examples and be like, well, everybody else that went to the Mets sucked, so will he. That's not exactly the truth. And you could actually make an argument against the lineup protection thing. So if you actually Google lineup protection, what comes up is it's Google AI that says, on average, lineup protection increases the likelihood of a batter seeing a strike by 0.25% and pitch down the middle of the plate by 0.07%. This means that over the course of a season, a protected batter can expect to see 6 more strikes and 2 more pitches down the middle. Now, I don't really buy into this. I actually think lineup protection is going to be an issue for him. I don't know how they calculated this. Like, was this Aaron Judge lineup protection, or was this like, Jeff Kent? I don't know, but yeah, those are my thoughts. Hey, if there's also, like, his current prices might have had baked in that he'd stay on the Yankees. So that could have been like a 50-50 probability, where now it's a 0. So is there going to be a dip in the short term? Yes. Should there be a dip? Yes. Should his prices crash more than 30%? No. And if so, I'm a buyer, and I might even buy before they get to that point.
All right. All good points. Chris, you wanna rebut any of those arguments, or echo those, or come up with some of your own?
I definitely have some Soto thoughts, but honestly, the phrase that Phil just used, short-term softening, is it's haunting me right now. I'm having a hard time shaking that phrase out of my head. So let me see if I can attempt to move past that.
All right.
Something I think we've all experienced in the card market, of course. Yeah, I think there's definitely going to be a short-term dip. Like Phil said, we've all seen Yankee fans dumping their cards or trying to sell their cards, burning their uniforms, posting really poorly worded and grammatically terrible Instagram stories, sort of venting their anger, which is completely justified. I totally get it. As a Braves fan, I don't want them in the NL East. I don't like the direction the Mets are headed. I think the Mets, if in terms of like taking the money, I get it, but I do think the Mets are in a much better position moving forward than the Yankees are. They gave up a lot in the Soto trade. Their 2 best players are now in their mid-30s. The Mets have a much better, younger core. They have a better farm system right now, and they have an owner that apparently just has bottomless pockets. So I do understand going to the Mets. Soto has a chance to kind of make his own legacy. He could be the greatest Met of all time, at least the best Met hitter. I'm sure that Tom Seaver fans won't enjoy that comparison, but he could definitely, over the next 12, 13 years, become the greatest Mets player of all time. And I'm guessing something like that means something to him. The idea that he could turn New York City around and make it a Mets town, I bet that's an exciting prospect for him. I bet he likes that challenge. But I do think there's two players whose hobby I think will benefit the most from this. One is Lindor, who is going to have finally someone legitimately a superstar with him on that team. It's just going to bring more attention to the Mets. It's going to help Lindor. He should have, I guess, Soto either behind him or in front of him. We don't know what they're going to do lineup wise, but it's going to help either way. The MLB Network said yesterday that Aaron Judge had more pitches in the strike zone last year than in any of the last like 5 or 6 years. I don't know where they came up with that stat or what type of research they put into it, but their thought was having Soto on base in front of him 43% of the time or whatever it was, force pitchers to go at Aaron Judge more than they normally would.
For sure.
So we'll see how that plays out. Yeah, the other player, I think Aaron Judge's cards, I think we're going to see a bump here because there's a ton of Yankee fans out there that were probably hesitant to buy into Soto. I know our buddy Short Print a Day didn't buy a ton. He actually restrained himself. And I know other people on Instagram that held back even more because they were afraid of Steve Cohen stealing this guy. But Aaron Judge is there. He's there for the next, 8 years? He may spend 3 of that on the IL, but he is their guy. And I'm guessing there's going to be some Yankee fan money pouring into Aaron Judge in the next 3 months.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't even thought about the Judge aspect of it. Most people are probably too young to remember, but I was a kid when the Mets were good in the mid '80s, and they were the toast of the town with guys like Gooden, Strawberry, Ron Darling, Keith Hernandez. And it's been a while. They've had a few ups and downs. 2000 was that their last World Series?
No, they got there in the year the Royals beat them. 2015.
Oh yeah,
15, I think.
So they had the Piazza year and the David Wright years, and then they won more World Series, and then not much since, right?
Yeah, they haven't won since '86.
Yeah,
they've gotten there, but they have not won.
As Phil mentioned, it's a huge market, so I feel like they're primed and ready. And from what I saw today, the Mets aren't done; they're going to keep adding. So I think they could make that situation even better for Soto. I agree that it's tough with guys that switch teams, but as you mentioned, Phil, he is only 26, and so if he is here for the next 15 years, that could really solidify his place in a one-team history. So I'm not too worried about that from a card perspective, except for his Yankees and Padres cards, which I think are going to take a huge dip, short-term and probably long-term. But I feel like his best cards, his Bowman Chrome first autos and his best rookie cards are going to still hold a lot of value. And like you said, if we get a pretty precipitous drop, I'd be a buyer there, because on long term, I think Soto is a legitimate superstar. So
yeah, the Nats cards are going to be fine. If anything, I think there'll be more attention maybe drifting down into those. I have seen, I checked before we went live on my way in here. There were currently 6 posts in that big Facebook group that has like 70,000 people. There's 6 posts in the last like 4 hours of people selling Yankee Soto autos out of Tops, and Logo Fractor, I think, was one of them. Just those are going to drop a lot. The demand for those is going to crater, I would think.
Yeah, it's tough. And I kind of had hopes after our discussion, was it last week or the week before, when the rumors about going to Boston were going around. Almost kind of let myself buy into that a little bit. I would have loved to see him in that situation, but this is where most people thought he would go. I kind of thought that Hal Steinbrenner would pony up whatever it takes to keep him there, but evidently they got priced out. So
I mean, they tried. I don't think Yankee fans can hate the front office, the Yankee front office. Like they did everything they could. Was it either Heyman or Morosi? I forget who it was, but they were saying that 3 times, I guess, the Yankees made an offer and Boris just went right to Cohen, and Cohen one-upped it. And then they went back to the Yankees and back to Cohen. And after the 3rd time, I think you just have to accept that doesn't matter what you do. He was going to outspend you.
It's funny seeing the team that's been the bully for decades get bullied by someone else. And all of a sudden, now they know what it feels like. And you could say they knew that with Ohtani and the Dodgers already, that there was potentially a bigger force out there. But it's interesting to point at what was the younger brother that they've been beating on for so long. Finally got stronger than them, at least from a dollar perspective. Maybe not the team, but a lot of people made the point. Michael Kay, Yankees beat writer / journalist / analyst guy, he was saying it's weird how Aaron Judge hasn't reached out to Juan Soto yet. Soto's had conversations with numerous players from each of the teams that are trying to acquire him, like Rafael Devers, Francisco Lindor, but I don't think Judge has spoken to Soto since the playoffs.
Oh, you mean in the recruitment process, he didn't hear from him?
Yeah. So is that the Yankees organization telling Judge to stay out of it? Is that the two that don't get along? Does Judge, did he not want Soto to be a second alpha potentially there? It's definitely interesting, because there's a lot of players out there that you look to as clubhouse leaders. Only one of them has a C on their uniform. That's Aaron Judge. And the captain didn't even reach out to Juan Soto. So might there have been something there internally arranged? And actually 50 to upwards of 75% of Yankees fans that were commenting on stories about the rumors of potentially the Mets acquiring him or the Yankees extending him. A lot of folks didn't even want Soto. They were calling out his lack of fielding abilities, being a DH at some point in the future, potentially. He doesn't offer enough to be worth that much. That's Ohtani money. Juan Soto is not that we need to spend that money elsewhere. We need infielders, we need pitchers. So their own fans were even saying that. So like recognizing that money is a finite resource. It's interesting. Like to the Yankees, it doesn't seem like it. We've seen a breakdown of spend across all of the different teams, and it's disgusting. I'm sure you guys have seen that chart over the last 3 or 4 years, how much the top organizations have spent versus like the ones who have barely spent $100 million in 4 years.
Yeah, I saw a stat today, Phil. Did you see, was that Severino that signed with the A's? It was their biggest contract ever given out in history. I believe it was $74 million. And Soto, as part of this deal, is getting a $75 million signing bonus. So he's getting a signing bonus bigger than the A's franchise history largest contract, which is crazy.
Yeah. Bobby Witt, who stands out as being very, very underpaid right now. His, I think it was an 11-year extension, was about $288 million. Granted, they didn't know what they were getting. You know, you're taking a risk on a young player. They're getting him throughout his entire prime because he just hit his prime this year in year one of that deal. I believe the year one was this year up till age, like, I don't know, 34.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about that. And I was going to ask Chris about this too. This brings to mind, I've got a new jersey here in case you guys didn't notice.
Oh, yeah. Look at that.
My in-laws for my birthday got me a Cheerio jersey.
Nice.
But it brings to mind exactly what you're talking about, Phil, because the Brewers signed Cheerio before he played a major league game to an 8-year deal, because that's the only way some of these smaller markets can try to keep a superstar player through their prime is by signing them early, which is great. But then do you feel like guys like Acuna or Witt or Cheerio, once they start seeing these contracts in year 3, 4, 5, is there going to be some holdout issues? Is there going to be some animosity between teams? Because we know that in sports, a contract's not necessarily a contract. And if Witt all of a sudden in his prime becomes the 100th highest paid player, is that going to be an issue?
I don't know. At the end of the day, it's betting on yourself, your abilities, and your ability to stay healthy. So I don't know. And the team has to take that risk too. So maybe Juan Soto was not even as confident as Ronald Acuna, but the Braves knew what they were doing and they made the bold move and they had the funds to do so. And they understood the potential impact. For every Braves organization doing it, there'll be a Wander Franco situation potentially. So that'll keep potentially the market value down for guys like Witt. But I thought of the Witt situation because he was the biggest contract by far. I think the Royals' biggest contract ever before Witt was Salvador Perez at $74 million. So that is still a massive risk for them to take to sign anyone for that long of a term. I don't know what the right answer is. Maybe there's an ability for Bobby Witt to get some sort of raise. Is that what works? Does that happen? That happens in other sports, right?
The only time anything like that's ever happened that I can think of off the top of my head is after the Orioles signed Chris Davis to that disastrous contract. The Tigers extended Cabrera. They just added like 5 years and $200 million onto Cabrera's deal. Like just because they felt like he's their superstar and now he looks underpaid, and that blew up in their face like almost immediately.
That was atrocious.
But, yes. Yeah. I've never heard or read anything about Acuna or Albies being unhappy with their current contract situation. Now, obviously Acuna has no complaints because he's only been healthy for 40% of the contract.
It'll be interesting if it's a guy like Witt, who, if he is able to stay healthy in a couple more years, how he would feel if he gets passed by everyone. Yeah, I don't know. Just the economics of baseball provide a lot of things to be desired.
Yeah. And so this situation is just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. And yeah, if teams like the Braves, like if they didn't lock up Acuna when they did and he had stayed healthy, he'd be a Dodger right now. Like there's, no other way to do it. I'm not going to feel too bad for Bobby Witt. What's he guaranteed? Like $280 million. I think he'll be okay.
Yeah. He'll still be rich.
Yeah. He'll do fine. I'm sure he's going to get endorsements. Maybe he can do like some sort of like a mustache wax or something. I'm sure he'll be fine. Like he's going to make his money.
Yeah, just put it all in like XRP and just triple it. And then I'll be at Juan Soto's level.
Yeah, there you go. I don't know what that means.
Don't worry
Risk
about it.
Free. All right. So Soto to the Mets. we've talked about there being some short-term softening of his market and how possibly at least Phil and I would be interested if it drops too low. You kind of feel like it'll ramp up, Phil. His market will ramp up a little bit as spring training gets closer and there's more excitement to see what he looks like in a Mets uniform. Do you feel like it's going to extend further into his Mets tenure, this downturn or softening?
Yeah, tough to say right now. I wish I had a crystal ball on that one. I do think that when players get massive contracts, as you said at the Open, most ever for any athlete, that and the buzz itself is usually going to cause a boost regardless of the team, a very short-term boost at the minimum, unless it was to like the Pirates, Marlins, or A's. But I think we'll see, and we'll have to keep an eye out on the sales, the auction volumes, like picking up on non-Yankees, non-Padres stuff. Like, is it truly just Yankee stuff that's getting fire sold? Because I'm seeing a lot of those, as you guys mentioned, short print a day. He had the entire or a bunch of like black parallels that he was selling.
Yeah.
What about like the Bowman Chrome autos? Like, what about people specifically selling all of their Bowman Chrome autos of Soto, which I know will happen. Just like, what's the extent of that going to be? And then we'll figure out like, okay, like the bottom isn't in yet, but it will come at some point, presumably before spring. I don't know if it bounces back in a significant way. I think a lot of people are concerned about Soto in the short term, and not just off season short term, but like the next 1 to 5 years potentially. And I think we covered this, but Soto, potentially a lot of this had to do with him just not wanting to play second fiddle to Aaron Judge. Maybe he wanted to be the alpha, right? And he didn't want another superstar. Clearly, Aaron Judge was the main reason why people went to the ballpark. And just because, the Yankees have a fan base that would go anyways, because they're really passionate about their team always. But Aaron Judge was like that marquee franchise player to them. And maybe he wanted the chance to do that for somewhere else. And I was trying to pull it up, but somebody in my Juan Soto chat, by the way, the chat's melting down by the minute. So it's a softening is definitely going to happen. And we haven't hit bottom yet. Somebody posted an Instagram post that he had thrown out there, I think when he was with the Nationals potentially, and maybe he was at Citi Field for an All-Star game or just like a road series. And he wrote like a really cryptic post, and it was like Big Apple goals future. So like how he wanted to be in New York someday. He didn't specify the team, or maybe he did kind of reference that it was the Mets. So kind of foreboding, I guess, that this all took place potentially, but that's kind of unrelated to my first point. But hey, he has a chance to be a star. And if you believe in cannibalization of guys like eating into others, like Mookie Betts isn't as noticed because Ohtani's on the team. If you're worried about that and you think that's a real thing that materially impacts values, then this could be a positive for Soto to be like that guy. Yeah, Lindor was number 2 in MVP voting this year, but that might not ever happen again. He's in his 30s. He's going to decline at some point, and it's not possible for him to put up an 8 WAR. Juan Soto probably hasn't hit his peak yet. So in the ballpark adjustments, those are real. Those are going to help his WAR. So if he doesn't hit 40 home runs, it doesn't mean he's going to suck.
Yeah, I mean the home runs, the home run totals are a concern for sure at Citi Field. There were some people already talking about, are they going to move the fences around for Soto? But I mean, he is a gap-to-gap hitter, and he's going to still put up his crazy slugging, and he's going to get that one way or another, whether it's doubles or home runs. But yeah, home runs is the big number that we always see, and I think we talked about it last week on Spitball, and all the gaudy home run totals he would have had in other parks. I can't remember what Citi Field was when we were talking about that. Probably less than what he had, right? I mean, it wasn't 63 like Reds ballpark.
Yeah, it was probably on the lower end.
Yeah, Big Ermies 33 on Instagram posted a couple home run stats for Soto. So his average at Citi Field is a homer 1 every 12 at bats, which is pretty good. So that puts him at like 22, 23 for the year, according to his math. So I don't think the homers are going to dip too much. I mean, in San Diego, but his first 40 home run season in San Diego, and still we talk about what a down season that was, but wasn't that he set a career high in homers and RBIs that year. His batting average took a dive. So it's possible his average gets hurt at Citi Field, but the home runs are going to be fine. I have no doubt he's going to put up solid numbers. But remember, Soto was a slow starter. So I would say if April is bad for him, and I think traditionally, Jeff, that's like one of his worst months. Like we might see his cards could just really take a dive in April.
So maybe that's the buying opportunity.
That could be an amazing buying opportunity in the first week of May. Or he comes out of the gate storming hot like he kind of did this year.
Yeah.
Either way, it's going to be, it's interesting.
Yeah. Did you say he hit 40 home runs on San Diego?
Yeah. He had 41 that year. What?
No, I don't think so.
Look it up.
I think he had 40, but wasn't this year his career high for RBIs?
Well, yeah, but I mean, it was a career high when he did it.
At the time, right.
At the time,
so
yeah.
He, as Phil said, he's still not even close to his peak. He's still reaching his prime and power prime too. So he could put up 50 home runs in New York.
Yeah, I don't really think there's anything he could do short of, unless he starts stealing bases. I mean, I don't think we're going to be too surprised about anything that he's going to do. And yeah, another reason maybe he left the Yankees is, it's possible he saw that the DH spot could start to really feel. Oh, I'm sorry. By the way, Phil is correct. I overstated. He hit 35 home runs as a Padre, not 41. Sorry about that. It was 41
for the crack research team. That was didn't this year he have 41?
Yeah, he had 41 this year. 41 109 this year. He had 35 109 in San Diego.
Yeah.
Phil, you were right. Good correction.
Good work, Phil.
Edit most of that out. Yeah.
No, you can leave it in. It's all right. I mean, we looked it up.
Yeah. We make mistakes.
Yeah, it won't be the first inaccurate thing I say today.
Yeah, or the last.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, blast. Jeez. There you go. There's two.
There's two. So Phil, any final thoughts? What do you, as a Soto collector, what are you going to do right now? What signs are you looking for to dip back in? Or are you just going to hold? What are you looking at?
Yeah. So if you look at, like, if I think about my overall exposure to Juan Soto, I sold my Bowman Chrome autograph like 2 months ago or so, not because I didn't think the Yankees would re-sign him. I just got a really good price. I thought the Yankees would re-sign him. And I also thought that was kind of baked into what I got. I'm low on Soto right now. Like, historically, if you look at my exposure to him versus other stars and other things that I own in my card and non-card portfolio, I'm really low with my Soto exposure. So I'm in a good place to add some, except I do have a lot of 2018 wax. How do I feel about that? Again, like, a lot of this comes down to a short-term, in my opinion, a short-term softening, not necessarily a medium-term softening. If you still believe in the player, despite his new environment, whatever you want to call it, if you think it's going to hurt him. The 2018 wax I have has almost all the Soto stuff, has Ohtani in it too, as a main focus point, and Acuna, which at this point, he's just like icing on the cake. He obviously is incomparable to Ohtani in how he contributes value to those products. So I'm not really concerned. I wasn't going to move a lot of this 2018 wax anyways over the next year. So I'm not too worried, actually. This isn't like, Ohtani getting braces surgery, torn UCL. Like, that's, even though that ended up being good for his values based on what he did the following year, this isn't a situation like that. This is not you shouldn't be calling your therapist. You shouldn't be having a panic attack, in my opinion, if you own Soto cards right now or 2018 wax.
Chris, I know you've been busy urging your friends not to panic sell, trying to keep them calm. As a Soto collector at some level, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking that if someone wants to panic sell a Soto Shuffle auto at a 2020 Stadium Club Chrome, that I'm your Huckleberry.
Panic buyer?
Yeah, I'll be your panic buyer for sure. I think the thing that disappoints me the most about this is that the Braves are now going to have to face Soto like a bunch and deal with him on a regular basis for the next decade, which stinks. But I really like that Stadium Club SP this year, where he's like waving to the crowd, the bleacher creatures, when they do their roll call. And now that card is just basically lost to cardboard history. I could probably pick one up in a year for like $30, if that. And
yeah, I'm waiting for the first person to deface one of those and make every person out there flipping him off and sell it as an art card. I'm expecting to see that on eBay.
Yeah,
soon.
I did not see the story, and I am shocked at the Aaron Judge that Aaron Judge did not reach out to Soto at any point. I had not seen that. That to me is absolutely mind blowing. I don't get that at all.
Gotta feel like I'm not sure about the stats that you threw out there, Chris, from MLB Network, but I feel like Judge had to know that he was helped at some level by having Soto in that lineup in front of him in terms of getting good pitches and bumping his numbers. So even if there wasn't a really strong personal relationship there, I would have guessed that he would have tried to reach out.
Yeah, that the lineup right now, the MLB Network posted like the current Yankee lineup, and it's a joke. Like it's legitimately there's one player in it, and that's it. Like it's you almost look at it and you just can't fathom that that's what the Yankee lineup looks like. Mark DeRosa said, and even my wife laughed at this. He said it's a good thing the Yankees have all these holes in their lineup that need filling because now they have all this money. And I'm not really sure. I feel like the network just has to take positive spins on everything. But that, I'm like, that's not good. They don't have a third baseman. They need at least one outfielder. They have no first baseman. They're a bit of a mess right now. Whereas the Red Sox, I think, have a pretty decent core of lefties in there, Phil. I would love to see them go hard after Burns right now. And maybe like Goldschmidt to be their DH would be a nice fit in between the lefties. And Teoscar has not signed with the Dodgers yet. And I think that surprised a lot of people because that seemed like a really good fit. He was super emotional during the World Series parade, but he's got some ties to Boston. I feel like that was where he wanted to go as a free agent. You know, Devers is on the phone with him on a daily basis.
It would be awesome if the Red Sox seized this opportunity to kind of take that focus away from New York in the AL East and really, stick it to them. That'd be pretty good.
Well, the Yankees are going to play damage control right now. They're going to overpay for the first big name free agent, and then the Red Sox will pick up the scraps around it because the Red Sox are, I would say, less emotionally driven, which, like, part of it is also arrogance that they think they can compete without paying up, even though they have the money, and they usually suck because of it. And they're like, oh, we'll fool the fans. We'll keep hot dog prices the same and just like clear house and make the fans think that we're retooling when we're really not. But yeah, I mean, the Red Sox are good positioned here, and we'll see. And I do agree that the Yankees are a bit of a mess. Only one team can sign Teoscar Hernandez. It seems like he's a part of three teams' plans.
Yeah.
Like, we'll just get Teoscar. He's great, and he's a better fielder than Soto. It's like, did you not watch baseball this year? Do you not know how good Juan Soto is? Like you said, Chris, Aaron Judge understands it. Why didn't reach out to him? I don't know.
Yeah, that's weird. It's really weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Teoscar, just every day that goes by now, it's another like $10 million in Teoscar's bank account.
Yeah, he might be the biggest beneficiary of this timed signing by Soto.
I thought it was crazy that Adames signed before Soto was off the market. Like, isn't that weird? Like, shouldn't he have waited? Because the Yankees don't have a third baseman. You would think there'd be a chance here. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. He really wanted to play shortstop. I think he was content getting. That's a pretty huge deal for him. So
it's a lot of money. It is.
So I don't blame him. The Brewers are going to miss him in the clubhouse, but I'm happy that he got his money.
Yeah.
Oof. All right. I think that's a good place to end on Soto. I'm sure we'll have plenty of other opportunities to talk about Soto this offseason as spring training rolls around and we see what pieces the Mets are putting around him with that Steve Cohen wallet. But thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.